Hi there, I'm Rashonda. I'm the creator of this YouTube channel as well as the artbyro.com website where you can find over 250 art and drawing tutorials. So make sure you check that out, but watch this video first, which we're going to be drawing a graffiti letter O in a fun little stylized way. It's great for beginners. It's super easy. We're going to play around with some color and techniques. And I'm going to take you through my thinking process while I'm figuring out how I'm going to do the drawing and making my decisions. So let's go on over to the art studio and get started on that drawing.
All right, let's draw a graffiti letter O. And for this letter, I don't want just a plain round shape, which is why I chose this letter for the video, because they can be pretty boring and we don't want that. We want our artwork to look interesting. So I found a letter style that I think works. It's pretty easy and it's got a little bit of style to it. So let's start by just drawing out a letter O. Just a rough single line. I never know what to call this. We're using it as a guideline, but you're just drawing it like you would a regular letter. Think about the size, because we're going to go in the inside and we're going to come out to the outside. So you want to think a little bit about the placement on your paper and the size. And I'm using an artist trading card. And I get a lot of questions about the pencil that I use. This is a Graph Gear 1000 by Pentel. I love this pencil for drawing. And I like this little grippy thing on it. It's kind of heavy for a pencil, which I like. I have some issues, some gripping issues with my hand from a injury when I was a teenager, when I broke my hand, and it doesn't seem to have been right since. So I really like this pen, and there'll be links in the description box for the supplies that I use and the ones that I like. So we're going to start by just doing the center. Just kind of a almond shape, I guess you would call it. And then what we want to do is come on the outside and start getting our shape together. So this inside's going to be erased. It just helps us get something on paper. For something like this that's pretty simple, the guidelines might not seem like they're necessary, but what they do is they get us over that little blank page syndrome, that, you know, you're staring at a blank page, you don't know how to get started, whether it's with your drawing or if you're trying to write something. Sometimes just staring at that blank paper can make us freeze. So one way to get around that is by just drawing that simple letter shape, because it's real easy to just draw a letter O, right? We know how to draw a letter O. It's just a circle. And that gets us over that freeze of the blank page. So I encourage you to draw your guidelines. It might seem kind of pointless and like you don't need to, but it does help. And also when you do those guideline shapes, it helps you to see the bigger picture of objects. So whether it's letters or if you're drawing a complex object or even a simple object, it helps you to see that overall shape. So I erased the inside, that guideline, and we'll clean it up better with a bigger eraser after we ink it. But now you can see the letter, the overall shape, so you can decide if you like it or if you want to change it up a little bit. And I'm drawing a little bit darker than I normally would, so the camera can pick it up a little bit easier. But we can widen this a little bit. And this is all just personal preference. Really, anything with art is just personal preference. That's why it really drives me crazy when people leave mean comments about somebody's artwork. To me, it's kind of ridiculous, because if you don't like it, that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But art is very much just a matter of opinion. And some people will like one thing and other people won't, and that's okay. I don't agree with being mean to people anyway. But I don't understand when people get a little too passionate about their opinion, because it's just their opinion. And if you don't like something, you can not like it, and you don't have to tell everybody about it. But all that just to say that art is just a series of decisions that you make based off of what you like and what you don't like, which is just your opinion of things. So the next thing we want to do is to add our black outline, and you could do a different color. I like doing mine in black. And I've been using these Ohuhu pens, and as you can see, there's a bunch of different nib sizes, which is really cool. So I'm going to use the 0.7 for this. I like a little bit thicker outline, and also I like to build my outline out, if that makes sense. I kind of like using a little bit thinner pen and then kind of building it up and filling it in. It's, for whatever reason, I find it to be very relaxing. I'm not sure why, but so I tend to use smaller pens. Maybe I like the smaller pen because I feel like I have a little bit more control over how thick the line is. And I can make it a little bit thicker. I can make it a little bit thinner. So when I'm doing my outlines, I'm just keeping my hand rested on the table, and then I'm moving my wrist to get those lines to help keep them straight. And even with these bigger lines, I try to use my wrist as much as I can. That one's a little bit too long. And then you can go back over it and make it a little bit thicker. We're going to add a little shadow to the right and the bottom. And follow that shape so your lines are parallel for your shadow with the lines on your letter. And then we can just fill that in. And then the same thing for this other side. And since the shape is rounded, we're not going to see anything up there because that would be the top. And then once we get down here, we'll see it a little bit more. So you want to taper it off when you get up there. And then again, try to follow that contour of the shape. And then for the inside, the shadow is on this piece. So the right side of this is over here, not there. That would be actually the left side of the shape. So you don't want to put it there, you want it on this side. And that's it for the outlining. And then we can use this big eraser to finish cleaning up the pencil lines. And that smudged a little bit. It probably wasn't dry yet when I went in with the eraser, but you know, we're shooting a video, so we're not letting things dry. So when you're doing yours, you want to let that dry. And then the next thing we want to do is to start adding our color and thinking about what we want the background to look like. And I'm going to do purple letter, and I'm using my Ohuhu markers. These are the Honolulu Bee, which are a brush tip on one end and a fine tip on the other. And I'm using, for the purple, let's see, V010 Faded Violet. And then I have this bright, it's called Rich Raspberry, RV212. And Grape Juice, RV314. So these are the colors I'm going to use, and they're going to go like this. So this is a nice bright pink, and then this is kind of a purplish pink, and then my purple. So we're going to try these out and see how they look. And I'm going to start with the purple at the top, and then go into that pinkish purple and then into the pink. So I'm gonna just fill this in. And I want it to be roughly a third with each color. But that doesn't have to be exact, so don't worry too much about getting that exact. And then when we get down here, we can just kind of flick that color down a little bit. And you can go back over to smooth it out some. So now I'm going to do this. This one is the grape juice. And I'm going to overlap this a little bit up here. And then bring this down. And then we'll have the pink at the bottom. And again, just kind of eyeballing it, trying to get roughly a third of the letter for each color. And then you can think about how you want it as far as that center part of the letter. If you want that area to be above there or not, where the bottom of the O comes up. And then where this is at, we can kind of try to blend this in a little bit better just by going the opposite way. That don't look too bad. Now we're going to use this last color. This is the Rich Raspberry. And for this, I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up. This is a nice bright pink color. And this is a wet on wet technique. So you really want to make sure you're doing this all in one go because you don't want the markers to dry. This one doesn't transition quite as good as the other one did. And you'll have that. Sometimes the markers don't match up perfectly. And that's just part of making the art. Sometimes they're going to match up and sometimes they're not. And you can kind of keep going over it and trying to saturate it a little bit more in that area. Use that lighter color to come up inside there a little bit more. That's okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to go back in with that darker purple after this dries and add in some lines over the top. I'm going to fix these up a little bit. Cover up that pink that was in the middle there. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I decided on doing a neon green around the outside edge. And I didn't have a marker that was the right color I wanted, but this highlighter is pretty close. So I'm just going to use a highlighter for the outside edge and start working on this background while I'm waiting for this to dry, because I want to do darker colors over top and just do some lines in here. And I'm going to do that with the purple, and I want this to dry because I don't want them to blend in together. So let's see how this green looks. This is real juicy. And then for the outside edge, I'm not sure. So I'm just going to follow the outside edge of this letter. I don't love how this highlighter kind of puddles at the end. Leaves that little wet spot and it makes it darker. I don't love that, but that's all right. One thing I've been working on over the years is trying to get out of the trap of perfectionism and feeling like everything has to be perfect. And I don't think those little dark spots are going to hurt anything. I would prefer they weren't there, but we got to work with the supplies that we have, and I just couldn't find a green marker that I really loved. I like the color. I don't love the little splotchy parts. And I also think, I'm thinking I want to do an outline around this. Give it a little bit of a border. But I don't want to do black, so I want to find a green outlining pen. So I'm gonna step away for a minute, see if I can find a green outlining pen that would go with this, and I'll be back and we'll take a look at that. All right, so I found a green, kind of a teal, I don't know, not really a teal, kind of a foam green Sharpie pen. I'm going to use that to throw an outline around this because I think it'll just make it look a little bit cleaner. And make a little bit of a border around this. And then the next thing is going to be the outline, not the outline, the background is what I meant to say. I need to put some kind of a background on here, and I'm thinking I want to do like maybe a brick wall, but I don't want it to be just a solid brick wall. I want to do something different with it. I don't know if you can hear that, the wind in the background, but it is crazy windy out today. And we do have a high wind warning. I don't know if the microphone is picking up on that or not. If it is, if it's distracting, I apologize. So I'm gonna do this brick wall in the background. And I like using these, I just cut out these strips out of cardstock and use them as a straight edge. But instead of having to try to eyeball it or measure things out, I can just use this to make a quick line. And I wanted to mention a little bit that I think it's important to embrace the little mistakes and mishaps and failures and things that don't work out good. One of the things that I do with my videos is I go ahead and embrace the things that don't work out exactly the way I want them to, like the little splotches on the green from the highlighter. And I could have recorded this ahead of time and made it perfect and not shown any of that and picked a different color so you didn't see that it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. I think we'll leave that like that, but that's not real. You know, it's like what they call the Instagram perfect. I don't know if you can see those lines. They're pretty light because I'm not going to leave them. So what I'm doing is I'm going to make my brick wall so that I kind of know where the bricks would be. But I'm not going to actually use the full brick wall. Let's see. So maybe a little bit right here. This one's white at the bottom, but it's not going to matter. And then that one would line up down here. So there would be another line really down here somewhere. And then those wouldn't be there. And there'd be one here and one here. But I don't want my videos to be Instagram perfect, so to speak, because I don't think that that's helpful to people. I like to take you through my process and my decision making, so when I'm making my videos, I didn't plan this out ahead of time. I didn't try it to make sure everything was going to go smoothly. I'm just doing it as I make the videos because I think there's value in going along on that decision-making process with me, because I don't want you to just copy my drawings. My goal is not to teach you to draw like I draw. My goal is to provide you the tools you need to create your own artwork in your own style and come up with all the good ideas that you can come up with on your own. And it's okay to follow videos and copy what somebody else is doing. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're a beginner or you don't have a lot of confidence in yourself as an artist. That one seems a little big, so I'm gonna make that a little bit shorter. So what I'm going for is I want just some random bricks. I don't want the whole brick wall filled in. I want it to be more like an implied brick wall, I guess, than an actual brick wall. So where I'm making these bricks more defined, I'm going to keep those, and the rest I'm going to erase. And I'm not sure what else I'm going to do with it. I'm thinking through this as I go. Let's see if there's anything. I think that's good. I could do... I don't want it to be too much of a pattern look to it. And honestly, I don't know if this is gonna really turn out the way I want it to. You know, you need to embrace your failures as much as you do your successes, because things don't always work out the way we want them to. So now I'm kind of thinking I want to do green. I'm thinking either green or purple for the background. Maybe I'll do purple for the background. So I have these. I'm kind of mixing and matching what I'm using. And I'm thinking I might do purple for the brick walls. I could do purple or this green. And I'm thinking maybe purple. Or we could do gray for the brick walls. So many decisions to make. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and speed this up and do a time lapse. I'm gonna take a pause here for a minute, figure out what colors I want to use for the background, and then I'm just going to go ahead and do a time lapse. So what I'm thinking is I don't want to do black for the brick wall, so I'm thinking either gray, purple, or green, and then I might just do some like bubbles around the outside of this letter and kind of tie everything in. So I'm going to do for sure this purple for the bubbles, and then I might do gray for the bricks. I'm thinking either purple or gray for the bricks, and then doing some purple around here. So I think purple for the bubbles, gray for the bricks. I'm gonna go ahead and do that in a time lapse, speed that up, and then I will be back when that's finished to add in the final touches. All right, I got the background pretty much done. I think I'm just gonna leave the bricks the way they are. I thought about maybe adding some shadows to them or a little bit of color inside the brick, but I think I might just leave it as is. And then I kind of wanted to try adding some little lines in here with the purple. And as I was talking about earlier, most of the time with the videos that I make, I'm figuring it out as I go in real time, because I believe there's value in bringing you on the little journey through my thought process. And I've gotten a few comments from people who say that they do appreciate that and they find it helpful. And getting over that perfectionism, I think, is important. I think that's good. I don't want to overdo it too much, but I wanted to try adding some little, I don't know, decorations, lines. I don't know what you would call them in there. I just went over here a little bit. Sometimes it's hard to stay inside the lines. And we'll just fix that up a little bit. So the last thing I want to do is I have these white jelly roll pen, and I just want to add maybe a couple little blocks of highlight in here. Maybe something like that. We could do, you want to look at where your shadows are and try to keep the highlights opposite where the shadows are. So we don't want our highlights to be down where the shadows are at. Maybe put one up here. And if the paint or the marker underneath bleeds through, you can try to go back over top of it once that dries. But this pretty much, that's it. And we're gonna call this one done. I hope you enjoyed the video and hopefully you feel inspired to create some of your own artwork. And I will see you next time. Happy creating!
That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and hopefully you feel inspired to create some of your own artwork. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a like, and also don't forget to subscribe if you want to get notified of future videos. Before you leave, check out the description box. There's some links in there to the supplies that I used, and also a link in there to a free beginner's graffiti guide. So check that out before you go, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!